Good evening, everyone. Really sorry for the technical problems we've been experiencing. Hopefully you'll get to see this back on Facebook, and any questions, please send them across and we'll do our best to answer them all tomorrow. So my name is Stephen Smith and I'm the Watch Manager for the On-Call Sustainability of On-Call team, and I'm joined tonight by our fitness advisor Charlotte, who I'll hand over to shortly to deliver a presentation giving tips on how to get through the job-related testing and be fit and strong enough for the role of a firefighter. Hopefully we'll bust some myths tonight in that you don't have to be big and strong. Yes, you will need a base level of fitness and strength, but most of it's technique and you'll learn that on your basic training. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Charlotte, and she'll be able to go over the presentation with you and share the tips and advice. So I will pass you on to Charlotte now. Thanks, Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Hashim, the Service Fitness Advisor. Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. So the purpose of this video is to talk you through how you can not only prepare for job-related testing, but also how you can prepare yourself for both the recruitment and life as the firefighter. The recruitment for the training session, for the training after you've completed recruitment, is 12 weeks. It's arduous, so you can be preparing yourself for that now. So we're going to talk through the top tips that you can do to get yourself ready for job-related testing and life beyond that. And now's a really good time to just kind of think, how are you currently training? What are you currently doing? We've been stuck in these difficult times recently with COVID, where you perhaps haven't had direct access to your gym, and still, whilst those measures are starting to lighten up a little bit, perhaps you've not been so consistent with your training, or perhaps you're sport specific with your training, so you're now starting to get back into sport specific training. So how can you incorporate your training to prepare you for the job related testing, and as I've said, beyond that? So those are the kind of key outcomes that I would hope you'll take away from the end of the session. We're going to talk through all the different components that you can be focusing on. And again, as I say, I encourage you to kind of think as we go through the presentation, what elements you feel you present with that are really strong. Are you really into your cardio? Are you really into your strength training? And you can kind of think, okay, what is it I could be focusing on? What elements in my history of training have I preferred? How can I adapt it? So whilst we covered the presentation as well, the presentation refers to a 12-week program. So there is a really comprehensive guide that you can download from our website, which will talk you through step by step all of the elements we're going to be covering in this webinar today. So you can download that. There's week by week training sessions. They are tailored, so you can either choose more cardio specific, or if you feel you need to be focusing on your strength, then you can select to choose and focus your training more on the strength. So that's, as I say, what you can expect we're going to cover in the session today. So we're going to begin by looking at the job-related testing then. What's going to be expected of you when you come along? So part of the recruitment process, you will come along to our Service Development Centre. When you arrive there for job-related test day, we'll begin by doing your PAR-Q screen. So you'll have a health screen form which you'll complete, and we'll do your blood pressure. The first test that you'll complete when you're there at the Development Centre is the bleep test, and it's the 20-metre multi-stage shuttle run test. So the 20-metre bleep test, you need to be able to complete this to a standard of 8.7. So 8.7 is our national standard for firefighters, and the reason the number 8.7, level 8 shuttle 7 is selected is because it demonstrates an aerobic capacity of 42.3 litres of oxygen your body can use per kilogram of body weight per minute. Now, what that looks like to us as a service is all of our operational firefighters need to maintain this level of oxygen capacity. So they complete an aerobic fitness test every year, all of our operational firefighters, to demonstrate they can adhere to this minimum standard. So you will be expected to also achieve the level 8.7, which emulates that level. So with the 20-metre bleep test, you can download yourself an audio that you can be practicing. As we go into the cardiovascular element of this presentation, I will be giving you loads of top tips on how you can prepare for that. So also as part of the job related testing, you will be doing simulated ladder lift. So wearing personal protective equipment, so the PPE, you'll lift a 25 kilogram bar, which emulates you lifting the ladder. So it's a functional assessment based on tasks specific to firefighters. You'll also carry out an equipment carry test. So this will be different tasks over a set period of time that you'll complete. You'll be guided through it, you'll be given the instructions, and you'll complete it with hose carrying, a dummy drag, carrying equipment too. You'll also be expected to go into an enclosed space because firefighters do need to work in tight, confined, dark conditions at times. So you'll need to be able to demonstrate that you are happy and confident to carry out a task in an enclosed space. A ladder climb will also be part of the job-related test. So you will climb up a ladder, and again, you'll follow the instructions that are given to you when you get to the top of the ladder, and then you'll bring yourself back down. Hose running is also part of the job-related testing. So you will run out and make up 3 hoses. And that again will be within a specific time. So in terms of cardiovascular fitness, these are the elements that we're going to start to talk about today around these principles. So we're going to look at the frequency. How frequently should I be training for cardiovascular fitness? Intensity, so how hard should it feel? Session duration, how long should I be training for? What mode of training is best for me to incorporate in my training program? How do I progress it? And how should I be building in rest and recovery, which are also really important in there. So when we start to look at frequency, it's best to think that there's a guide between 3 to 5 times per week. So if you're new to cardiovascular training and you're not frequently engaging in cardiovascular training, so your aerobic training, so we're talking about running, cycling, swimming, cross training, then to start with, begin by building in consistent sessions. So perhaps over the first 4 weeks, and as you'll see in the program, that's what we focus on, just building in that consistency. Don't do too much, 3 sessions per week. Gradually then over a period of the following 4 to 6 weeks, 8 weeks, you can increase the frequency of your sessions. So we're going to progress gradually, and we're going to do that smartly, so we're going to reduce our risk of injury. So next, when we start to talk about the intensity, there are scales that you can use and different ways that you can monitor and measure your intensity. So as you'll see, the Borg scale, which is in this colourful chart on your screen, you've got the Borg scale, which is a measure to measure your intensity on a scale of 6 to 20. And the 6 to 20 scale correlates to your heart rate. Okay, you may prefer to use the category ratio scale in the 3rd column. That corresponds, and it's a scale of 1 to 10. So if I was to say to you, how hard are you working? How intense does this session feel? 1 would be that you're asleep in bed, completely chilled. 10 would be that you're working at your absolute maximum. Okay, so 5 is around a moderate level of intensity. Level 5, you should still be able to talk. It should be comfortable. You may be getting sweatier, but you'll still be able to have that conversation. So you can kind of start to think to yourself, how am I training now? What's my current training like? Am I working hard enough? Is it comfortable? Is it moderate physical activity? Is it around that 5? And when you're looking at around about that 5, you'll be working under 80%. So usually between 60 and 70%, as you can see in the right-hand column, it demonstrates to you what is your percentage zone. That means based on your heart rate maximum, so based on you, what is your maximum heart rate, what percentage are you actually working at? So as I say, you can use this chart here to be able to scale where you're at. As it starts to go up harder, when we're looking at around 70 to 80%, we're going to be working aerobically. It's an endurance zone. Okay, so your body is going to be using oxygen, the oxygen that you're breathing to fuel the muscles, and you're going to be able to maintain an endurance zone. And as you can see there, it's going to be around about 15 on the Borg scale, and it's going to feel quite hard and quite heavy, and that is up to 80%. As you start to increase above 80%, eventually your body will move from being able to be aerobic to stop using oxygen. It will slowly, like on a continuum, move to what's called an anaerobic state. Okay, so as you progress above that 80%, you're going up to 90% where it's very hard, taking it on further up to the 100%, which is obviously at your 10 out of 10, it's your maximum. But just be mindful that kind of around that 80-85%, our body will stop using oxygen. It will become more anaerobic, and you're going to be able to maintain that for much less duration. It's going to be really hard, and your body will start to slow up, and you may have heard the term buildup of lactic acid in the muscles, so it will inhibit your performance. But there's great ways you can train to push up that level and that tolerance, which we'll come on to just shortly. But monitoring intensity is really important, because you're going to be able to question, how hard am I really working? So based on what I've just discussed there, you can think about, how does it feel? Can I talk? However, based on the effort, which you can see in the right hand column, and the percentages of your heart rate, you can monitor that. And on this next slide, you'll see the heart rate monitoring. If you want to, you can choose to wear a heart rate monitor. If you do that, I would also suggest that you don't just monitor the intensity based on the heart rate, also kind of think about how you're feeling too. So there is a close relationship between your heart rate response and the zone in which you're exercising. So you can use the method on the screen here to be able to calculate your zone. So there is more guidance, and there's some examples of this in the 12-week program. So if you download that, you can see, and you can check that you're calculating it correctly if you choose to do it. But the equation here is really accurate, because it does take into consideration your age and your resting heart rate. So it will be really specific to you. So to calculate that, you decide which zone you're going to work in. So you may decide to work from 60% to 80%. You're going to take a number 220, you're going to minus your age, you minus your resting heart rate, then you times that by the percentage intensity desired, and you add back on your resting heart rate, and that will give you one of your heart rate calculations. So then when you are training, you can see whether your perception of your zone is accurate to how your heart is responding, and you can track it, so you can get really smart with your training. So it's a great thing to build into there. So now we just look at the session duration. So the session duration and the intensity are really linked, because obviously, as we've just discussed, the intensity, we could take it really high, we could take it up to that 85, that 90%, but how long are you going to maintain that for? Because you're going to get a build-up of lactic acid. It might be harder to maintain. So they are interlinked. So as we can see here, we've got steady state, long, slow distance sessions, and they are really good for building up your endurance. So they're not so high intensity. Roughly duration is around about 30 minutes plus. So if you're, again, as I referred to earlier, if you're new to your cardiovascular training and you're looking at those 3 sessions a week to begin with, start with steady state sessions. It's a great place to start. It's not going to put too much stress on the joints. Like I say, it's a good place to start. Your intensity for that is a 70% heart rate, and that's the RPE on the Borg scale of 13. So you can set your heart rate zone and try and monitor and keep it there. If you find that maintaining there is hard, perhaps you're road running and it's undulating, so you're up and down some inclines and it pushes it up a little bit harder, that's fine. Come back to a walk, recover, and then go back on again when you're ready. As it suggests here, following your warm-up, so you're going to warm up first, good 5-minute brisk warm-up. So for your warm-up, again, as I say, brisk warm up, take it out, 5 minutes, increasing your heart rate. You're not trying to cause yourself to feel fatigued. We're just going to start to increase the circulation around the body, warm up the muscles, warm up the joints. If you are training in a colder environment, add on a little bit more time. Give your body that time to really make sure you're thoroughly warming up properly. And then you're going to add on a good 5-minute cool down at the end and post stretch, which again, I refer to the program. You've got those built in there. So these are your steady state sessions. Another training method as well would be pace tempo. These are shorter sessions. So you might start to build these in once you've got that consistency into your training, once your body's starting to adapt, starting to get you used to your running sessions or whatever your cardiovascular sessions are, whether you're on a bike. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more in the mode section of the presentation. But pace tempo, when I talked about that anaerobic threshold, is going to allow your body to start to become more tolerant. So when you get a build-up of lactic acid in the muscles, training at a higher intensity, your body's going to be able to cope. Your body's going to be able to keep going. So in those stages with the bleep test, perhaps you can comfortably kind of get to level 7, and that percentage of effort is increasing. It might give you that gap from that level 7 up to 8.7 when you start to fatigue, when it starts to come harder, when your muscles are starting to get that lactic acid. Training in pace tempo is going to give you that ability to go a little bit further. So start off with 20-minute sessions after your warm-up, and you're going to be working at around 80%. So set your zone, 80%, we know where that should feel, and it's going to be an RPE of 15 on the Borg scale. You could start off with 1 session a week, and you've got a choice. You can either pace tempo consistent, so you can try and maintain that 80%, which is quite tough, or you can interval. So you may have a zone set at about 60%, or again, gauge it by how you're feeling. Push up till it's hard, heavy, bring yourself down a little bit, recover, and then push back up again. Track your sessions, and then you're going to be able to see how you progress. So that's your pace tempo session. With fartlek sessions, they're similar, but again in even higher intensity. So only start to build these in when your body's really used to knowing how you can cope with these cardiovascular sessions. We're going to be looking at, again, starting off at 20 minutes. It's going to really help with pushing up that lactate threshold, 70% up to 85 to 90%. So after a really thorough warm-up, you're going to increase that pace. So if you're on a bike, if you're on a cross trainer, if you're running, that's fine. You're going to increase that intensity till you're up to 85 to 90%. Maintain for as long as you can. When you can't maintain it any longer and you're true to that intensity, take a recovery and then push back up again. So you're going to interval with your fartlek approach. So as it describes on the slide here, listen to your body, push for as long as you can, and work within that training zone. You could start off with 1 session of fartlek a week. That's absolutely fine. And then obviously building in with the steady state and the pace tempo sessions too. So in terms of your mode of training then, that's really down to you. What do you enjoy doing? It's not for me to tell you to pick and choose something that you're not then going to be able to sustain or you don't get any pleasure or enjoyment from. So as you can see there, bike, road running, cross trainer if you're using a gym, you can swim. The one tip I would suggest to you though is obviously be mindful that you are going to be running the bleep test. So you do need to build into your training elements of being on your feet and practicing the bleep test. Now you may decide to, as you'll see in the program, every 4 weeks there is a self-assessment for fitness testing. That is where I recommend you go to a firm surface, a tennis court. You can use concrete tarmac or a sports hall to practice that 20-meter bleep test. And then on opposing fortnightly sessions from the bleep test, I recommend you go to a park, soft surface, no pressure of the bleep test, but you just practice those turns. So you're really getting in some specific training It's going to build up that muscle memory for running. You're going to power back across, stop, practice those turns. And when we look at how we can practice those turns and how we can be smart with that, when you're practicing your turn, perhaps try and switch on your lead leg so you're not putting the same stress through one side of the body. Thinking about your technique, video yourself if you can, and you're going to be able to get a real visualization of perhaps what you're not able to feel. Going to be a great smart way of you being able to monitor your training. When you're doing your bleep test, your actual practice sessions, as I've said, your monthly self-assessment, have that audio running. If you get to a certain level and you're not at 8.7 and you need to stop, take a pause. That's great. Take the pause, recover, power back on, join back in, because it's going to not only give your body the opportunity physically to see what that speed is really like, it's going to mentally help you better too, rather than you feeling you've stopped and you've not quite achieved. Stop, join back in when you're ready. So I would be recommending a combination of these different modes in your training. You may decide to use a bike for your fartlek training. That would be a really smart way. You're off feet. It's going to put less stress through those joints. You're going to get the same response. It's going to give you cardiovascular gain. If you're true to those intensity, then you're going to improve your fitness. That's what's going to happen. So yeah, you can choose an option of all of those modes. So in terms of progression, rest and recovery, make sure your progression is gradual. You'll see in the 12-week program that the sessions do progress, they do get harder. If it's progressing too quick for you, if you're struggling to maintain that, then pause, repeat a week. That's absolutely fine. Tailor it to suit you. As it suggests here, exercise frequency, intensity, and duration should not increase any more than 10% each week. So that's a maximum. So if you start to add on more frequent sessions, so you've gone from 3 up to 4, and then you want unsteady state sessions and you want to add in then a paced tempo session, you may decide to the following week go back to 3 sessions. Just slowly, gradually take it up. Really listen to your body. As it suggests, reduce the frequency short term to avoid overloading too much. Like I've said, you can do that. Really listen to your body. Exercise regularly in intensity that overloads the body to cause fitness gain. So challenge yourself. Think to yourself, am I training hard enough? I need to progress my fitness, my cardiovascular fitness. I'm going to push it up a little bit harder. Too much training can cause injury, so be careful and mindful of that. Make sure you're warming up and cooling down properly, and definitely you need to build in those post stretches at the end. And as it says here, as a general guide, individuals could expect to see a 10 to 15% gain in cardiovascular fitness following a 12-week program. This is a guide. It will depend on your history of training, your age, genetics. There are other factors in there too. So I've touched on this already, shuttle run practice tips. Make sure you're using the correct bleep test. There is the 15-meter bleep test too, so make sure you download yourself the correct audio. Practice your turns, switch on the lead leg. You can stop and join back in when you're ready. Use a firm surface for practicing that on, and practice your shuttle runs at the park too. Track your progress, keep an eye on where you're at. And they're the top tips for your shuttle run. So key component for firefighters, obviously they do work with very heavy equipment, wearing full PPE. It is arduous, it is challenging, so you are going to need a good level of muscular strength and endurance. It's very functional, and sometimes some of the exercises we may incorporate into our resistance training in the gym, we can make those particular exercises even more functional and specific to what firefighters do on a daily basis. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit now. So as you'll see some of the pictures here, there are exercises you can build into your training that are going to emulate some of the tasks you will need to do, or all of the tasks you'll need to do in the role of as a firefighter. We're going to start off, if you're new to resistance training, again, as I encouraged you at the beginning, really think about where you're coming from. What's your current training platform? What are you currently engaging in, especially with not having access to gyms for quite some time, you may just be starting to build this back in. So this might be a great time for you to now revamp up your training and think about how you can make it consistent and specific to the need that you're going to need for recruitment and beyond. So a phased approach, thinking about base training, first 4 weeks, getting yourself back into resistance training. 2 sessions a week, absolutely fine. You could have one of those sessions is a circuit-based training where you're focusing on an all-body approach. So you'll see in the circuit session that's in the 12-week program, you start off with you've got squats, you've got lunges, you've got clean and press, but it's also integrating in some cardio there too to give those muscles a little bit of a recovery in between. So you've got your shuttles, you've got some burpees, you've got jacks and high knees. So you can start off with a nice circuit approach, which is going to start to also build in some muscular strength and endurance. And another resistance session as well, which is all over body. You can also build in where you're looking at using multi-joint major muscles in the body. So you can start thinking about overhead press, because you're lifting, obviously with lifting the ladder. You can do bench press. So looking at your push and your pull exercises. You've got your rows, lat pull down. So thinking about exercises like that are going to work the major muscles in the body. Frequency, as I've suggested there, you're going to be looking at 2, maybe 3 times a week, depending on what your need would be. And as I've said in the program, after week 4, you will see that it does start to suggest that you could have an extra resistance session in there if you need it. Now, you may decide with that frequency that 1 session a week is your circuit training, circuit session. Your other 2 sessions are focusing on your strength. So when we look at how many reps you should be doing and the sets, if you're starting to progress up, so over those 12 weeks, you're going to start to progress your strength. Start off with lighter weights. Start off with higher reps. Okay, get those muscles used to the exercises you're asking them to do. You're going to start to build that muscle memory, and then you can start on a kind of continuum, increasing your weight and reducing down your reps, so it's going to get harder. So you may start off with 12 to 15 reps, 2 sets, 2 to 3 sets, and over the weeks gradually increase your weight. So you want to be achieving fatigue by the end of that rep range. By the end of it, so you're looking at from week 8, you want to be around about 6 reps. Maybe 3 to 5 sets, depending on what access you've got to what equipment. Obviously, really be mindful that you need to keep it safe. If you're working and training on your own, then stick with dumbbells and make sure that you're training with kit that you're able to be safe with too. But as you can see on the images here, you can roll a ball out, which is emulated in rolling up the hose. Pick the ball up and carry it back. Overhead press for emulated lifting the ladder. Taking a medicine ball or a weight, if you haven't got a medicine ball, you can use a fabric rucksack and put some water in there or some dumbbells into there and hold it away from the midline of the body. Really focus on core strength. This is the time I need to recommend really do work your core, because a lot of the exercise you'll be doing, a lot of the drills, they're overhead. You need to make sure that your core is going to be able to support your lower back. So with the medicine ball, taking it away from the midline of the body, similar exercise to rolling out the hose, similar to using the cutting equipment, and it's going to, with that hold, it's going to start to work the muscles to be able to carry out that task, and those muscle fibers in there that is going to stop them from fatiguing. So as you can see on here, we've got an example circuit to show you. There's the circuit sessions in the program as well, so definitely you need a 5-minute warm-up in there. We're going to be specific for this warm-up, so 5-minute warm-up. We're going to increase the heart rate. Like I say, we're not going to try and cause too much fatigue, but we are going to make sure that the muscles and the joints are ready for the exercise you're doing. So march it out, gradually mobilize the joints, shoulder circles, curls, overhead press, building some squats. Make sure you get that technique right, keep it slow and controlled, and gradually continue to increase the heart rate. So make sure you're thorough with your warm-up there. Main session, this particular one on the screen, you can see you've got an equipment carry, step in with weights, medicine ball roll, hold, so you're going to hold that medicine ball, a ball roll out and carry back, and a lunge with a rotation, which really focuses on working into our obliques and our core, and it's a little bit of a challenge of balance too. That particular circuit, you feed in a shuttle run in between each station too. So it's going to test you cardiovascularly as well as muscular strength and endurance. You can adapt obviously how long you're on, so how long that round is, and your recovery. So if you need to extend the time for recovery between each one, keep it active, keep your feet moving, don't let that heart rate drop, and join back in when you're ready. And then obviously you can see, make sure you cool down properly, take your time for your cool down, and post stretch at the end. Coming on now to some of the components that aren't always considered or spring to mind initially with firefighters, but agility, balance and proprioception is key. So our firefighters, they do work in dark, confined, challenging conditions where they can't always see where their foot placement is falling. So if you kind of consider, if you're working with debris underfoot in a dark room, what's going to make the difference from you being able to perhaps find a funny footfall and be able to continue, or stopping that sprain of an ankle or particularly a potential injury? So for that, you can train to improve that, and a great place to start is stand up, stand on one foot, shut your eyes and see what your balance is like. It's quite interesting because this isn't something we kind of build into our everyday, so that's a great place to start. You can use a Bosu ball to test that, or you could use a cushion standing on a pillow or a towel so it's slightly uneven, and as I say, engage your core, stand up, balanced on it, close your eyes, and you'll feel the ankle and the foot start to react, and that will get better and that'll improve. And you can, as well, as you can see, build in some directional travel into your training as well. When we go to the gym, a lot of the time we do see people moving in the same plane of motion, which might not be the case when you're working in the role as a firefighter. Build in some lateral stepping too, and it's not only going to challenge you physically, mentally, those neurological pathways are going to open up and your balance is going to improve. It's going to reduce your risk of injury if you slip or trip. Flexibility, so this is again really essential, not one to be neglected. Thinking about your range of movement and your joint mobility, any tightnesses, any weaknesses, so needing to move in tight, confined, challenging spaces, wearing full PPE, wearing breathing apparatus, you do need to be able to have a good level of flexibility. So really do invest the time in your stretching. It doesn't need to be formal. However, you could join something like some sessions like Pilates, yoga. It's going to give you a structured session, and it's also going to give you a bit of time out. So it's great for that mental release, a little bit of escapism, so a little bit of time for you too. So as I suggested and talked about earlier with core exercises, they're really important to build into your resistance program, really important, fundamental. And Pilates and sessions like that are going to help with really focusing on range of movement, deep core strength. So really focusing on the belt around your waist, which is going to help to stabilize your lower back and reduce your risk of injury when you're starting to potentially increase your exposure to more upper body lifting. So yeah, I do suggest that you build that into your program too. So now I'm just going to summarize in a nutshell a lot of what we've spoken about here. At the beginning I said, think about your history. You're all going to be watching this video with different experiences, different specific training likes, dislikes. Think about how you've trained over the past 2 years. I suggest you could draw yourself out a mind map so that you can think about what your long-term training's like, short-term, what's your current frequency, intensity, duration and time. So think about those things. Is there anything sport specific that you also need to be focusing on? And if there is, does it conflict maybe with the suggestions we're offering here for what you would need? And kind of then you can give that some thought, and it's not going to catch you out. Think about what motivates you, what do you enjoy, and also think about, is there anything here that you kind of like avoid, isn't your favourite thing, and how you can start to set some goals so you can start to build that in. Again, if there's any injuries or weaknesses that you need to be considering. So think about if there are any gaps in your current training that you can now start to tailor to make it so that you're going to be absolutely fit for job-related testing and the role and the career as a firefighter. Set yourself some SMART goals. Use the 12-week program that's there on offer for you, and you can follow that program through. It should give you all the components that you need, and as I've said, tailor it where you can to suit you. Track your progression, monitor it. When we talk about how to track and monitor, not only write down the numbers, so the data, for example, how long your session was, what the RPE scale felt like, what the frequency is each week. I really encourage you to, because a lot of the time people use apps to track their sessions, which is great. It's a great way of doing it. But I also encourage you to write down how you feel. How does it make you feel? What else is going on in your life? So, for example, lack of sleep may be an issue. It's more if you're going through anything that's stressful, that might be inhibiting performance. So if you're kind of wondering why you may be a bit off track, a bit off par, you may have been poorly, and it may have a consequence, a knock-on effect. So write that down, because that'll be valuable for you to reflect back on. The takeaway tips then at the end. So cardio training 3 to 5 times a week. Have a mix of the steady state, pace, tempo and fartlek sessions. Make sure you progress gradually with those, okay? Really listen to your body. Be smart with your training, use other modes. Make sure you're training hard enough. Really think about, am I progressing? Maybe why am I not progressing? Am I really taking myself to the really challenging intensity where I'm going to get sufficient overload to really push up that cardiovascular training? Cardiovascular effect. So you can monitor that through your bleep test as well, so by tracking your progression with that. Mix the type to reduce the stress. Resistance training 2 to 3 times per week. You can have that mix of the circuit training as we've suggested. Light endurance, so higher reps, 15 reps, 2 to 3 sets, slowly on a continuum, progressing up to more strength-based, 5 to 6 reps, 3 to 5 sets maybe. Again, it's all in the program for you of the key exercises that would be great for you to select. All over body approach, incorporate those functional firefighter specific exercises which you saw on the screen, hose running, ladder lift, equipment carry, cutting equipment, and really focus on the quality and technique. So again, all the tips are in our program. We have started to release videos too, which are linked to from the program, so you can follow us through on those videos. Flexibility, 2 to 3 times a week. Take your time out to increase your range of movement and your balance, agility and proprioception as well. That doesn't need to be formal. You could do that at home. Practice your balance, perhaps whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil. Could build in, as it says here, the throwing and catching. If you're training perhaps with somebody else, or throwing a ball at a wall whilst you're stood on a BOSU ball, you can make it as challenging as you like, but it's all going to really pay off, be really valuable for you. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to post them attach them to this video. We will pick those back up and we will come back to you. Thank you so much for your time in watching this video. We really hope that that's been useful to you, and good luck with your training. Thank you very much.